What is going on? Just wanted to make a quick video here. I know the Giants haven't played this Sunday, so I just wanted to talk about a few outstanding things as we go into the Broncos game uh, this Sunday. And it is a road game, and it's going to be a big test. You know, it's this is the next step in the Jackson Dart era, which is prove you can win on the road, right? You beat two good teams. I mean, and you lost probably the worst team in the NFL. So the Giants are literally proving they could probably beat anyone and also lose to anyone. But the two games that they won were at home. So now you need to prove that you can win on the road. That's the next step. And honestly, they had 5 turnovers in the Saints game. If you have 3 turnovers, maybe they could have won that game, but 5, they had to have 5. They lost. So now they'll be playing the Broncos. And here's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh my God, the Broncos defense is amazing. And, you know, the Giants are going to have a real test. I feel like the goalposts keep moving, right? Jackson Dart in his first start came out and they were like, all right, this is a real test, right? He's playing the Chargers. This is a legit team. They're 3-0. If he can come out here and get a win, you might have something. And he did. And then the next thing was not the Saints, because everybody was like, yeah, the Saints or whatever. But then it was, all right, if you go beat the Eagles, now you really got something. And he did. Now it's, can you go on the road and beat the Broncos? So I feel like the goalposts keep moving, right? If they beat the Broncos, then it's going to be, hey, can you do it again next week and go on the road and beat the Eagles and sweep them? Then maybe you've arrived. So all these pundits and everybody keep moving the goalposts. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I actually do think the Giants can beat the Broncos. Does that mean they will? No, because they lost to the Saints. So who knows what's going to happen? Jack Stark could get injured in the first quarter, and then we're going to lose, right? We could have a bunch of turnovers, and we're going to lose. But if we play the game that we probably want to play, which is similar to how we played against the Eagles, I think they could beat the Broncos. I also think the Broncos are a little bit overrated. I don't think their offense is very good. With Bo Nix, plus J.K. Dobbins, I think they can be, but they're not very consistent. And on defense, look, I get it. Statistically, they are one of the top defenses in the league, but who have they really played? In week 1, they played the Titans with a rookie quarterback making his first start. Okay. They also played the Jets this past week. They played the 49ers, who I'm not sure if Brock Purdy got injured in that game. Okay, they played Daniel Jones and the Colts, which they lost, and they beat the Chargers. Um, but I mean, Giants beat the Chargers. So everybody's trying to sell this idea that, oh, the Broncos are like this really upper echelon team, and it's like, we'll see. We'll see. But I don't think they're out of the tier of the Giants, and I think that they could get a win here. And I said this even before the whole Jackson Dart mania. So we'll see. But beyond that, there's been some talk now with the momentum that has come about with the Giants that they should go out and get a receiver. They should trade for one, and bring in a viable option, not just somebody who's off the practice squad or off somebody else's practice squad or who's a free agent, but somebody who's a viable option. And here's my take on that. If the Giants had a legitimate 1 and 2 wide receiver who just happened to both get injured, I would say don't do that, because then when they come back next year, you're going to have an overload of wide receivers that ultimately you're going to have to pay them all or let them walk or whatever. And I think that would be then a bad idea. But the Giants are still in the market for a number 2 wide receiver, a legit number 2 wide receiver, because Slayton at best is a number 3, and whether or not you even want him over a Wan'Dale Robinson, who knows? But you still need that legit number 2. So to get a receiver in here that could help stabilize the receiving core now and then into next year be the legit number 2 next to Neighbors, that could really be something. And so I would be in favor of that. Whether you get not so much in favor of trading away certain players, but maybe a third round and Deontay Banks, that could be a situation where maybe we could get a good receiver in here. Now, um, who can they target? Well, there's some talk about Rashid Shaheed from the Saints, and I think that's a good option, although I think he is more along the lines of a Darius Slayton. He's really just like a speed guy, but he is a better version of Darius Slayton. I think he's faster and he's got better hands, but I don't think he's a dynamic, true dynamic wide receiver. But who knows? I mean, Plaxico Burress came here in 2004 and ended up being, the Giants' number one. So Calvin Ridley is another option, and he's a little older. He's like 30, so that's a little concerning. But he is big. He's 6'1", so he could play on the outside, and could be something. And then there's a few that I really don't think are options. One is Jerry Jeudy. I think he's too expensive, and I don't know if he'd be a great fit. And then Jalen Waddle, who I would love to get here because he's young, he's pretty fast, he's pretty fairly dynamic, but I think he's going to be expensive. And I don't even know if he would be on the market. Maybe if the Dolphins are looking to do a fire sale because they're 1-5, their coach might be on the verge of getting fired. Who knows what's going on with Tyreek Hill? He might be done playing football, and so they might just trade Jalen Waddle for some picks and then tear the whole thing down. They're not very happy with Tua, so they might tear the whole thing down. If that's the case, maybe he hits the market and we could trade for him, but again, he'll be expensive. So I think the best option is probably Rashid Shaheed from the Saints. I think he's 27. Again, he's kind of like the upgraded version of Darius Slayton. I think he's faster than Slayton. He has better hands than Slayton. And who knows, if he's given the opportunity here with Neighbors, maybe he can become a complete number 2 wide receiver versus just kind of a down the field guy. So I wouldn't be opposed to that. And my theory too, a lot of people are like, oh, you got to save picks. You can't be trading picks away and blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. Let's say they trade, they can't trade this year's third round picks. I don't think they have one, but let's say they trade next year's third round pick and whatever, Deontay Banks or somebody for Rashid Shaheed. If you were to say, hey, the Giants got a player like Rashid Shaheed with the third round pick, wouldn't we be happy with that? Right? So getting the player that has already become that for a third round pick versus spending a third round pick to draft a guy who may or may not become that, right? He could become that, or he could become like the next Deontay Banks, or Jalen Hyatt, where we end up not using him at all. So wouldn't you rather spend, again, one in the hand is worth two in the bush? Wouldn't you rather spend a third round pick on a guy who has kind of become something in the NFL? Yes, there's the chance that you could get a third round pick on a wide receiver and he becomes the next Odell Beckham or something, but it's more likely he'd be more towards the Jalen Hyatt side of things. So why not spend the pick on the guaranteed commodity? Now, it doesn't mean Rashid Shaheed, doesn't mean Calvin Ridley. These are just the names that are being floated out there. But there could be another name, out there from left field that the Giants end up making a move for. But I do think they should do it, not even if they lose the Broncos game and they're 2-5, because people would say, oh, it's a lost season. Why spend the money on that? And I say because it's not just for this year; it's for next year. So you'll have something to stabilize this year, and then next year you'll have your true number 2 next to Malik Neighbors, and then with Slayton still under contract, and I think Wandale will be in the last year of his contract, so you'll have some wide receiver depth, especially playing on the MetLife turf. That's a good thing. So I think Rashid Shaheed is probably the top target. Of course, my wish list one would be Jalen Waddle, but I don't think they're going to be able to get him. And then one last thing I watched the Saquon Barkley documentary, and let me tell you, I think his goal was to kind of explain what happened with the fallout between him and the Giants and to kind of make himself look like, hey, I did everything in my power to stay and they didn't want me. But he comes off as looking very narcissistic, right? I thought he was a very humble guy, and there's scenes in there where he's like, you know what? I'm the best running back in the NFL. They should pay me like I'm the best running back in the NFL. And it's like, or in like another one, he's like, they they should just pay me or trade me, right? They want to play this game where it's like they don't want to pay me, but they don't want to trade me, and so it's like I'm trapped. And it's like, yeah, well, that's the business of the NFL. You are under contract with them, and so they'll dictate what they're going to do with you until the contract runs out. So it just came off as he came off as very narcissistic and all about himself, and like it made you think that all the stuff that he was doing um, was an act. The good guy, I'm for the team, I want to be the giant with the Giants. It was all an act, just to, I don't want to say manipulate the fan base, but to paint a certain picture to the fan base that he wanted. But that's not really who he is. Who he really is a guy who thinks he's the best athlete on the field whenever he gets on there, and he should be the highest paid at his position, and he basically should be the face of any franchise that he's on. That's really the type of guy that he is. And I think he shouldn't have came out with this. Um, let bygones be bygones. And look, you got one on a better team. You had a great year rushing last year, and you won a Super Bowl. What else do you want? You literally got what you said in the documentary. You just wanted to play football and win championships, and that's what you got to do last year. So let it go. And I don't know what he was planning on doing, because some of the clips are like he'll read off, like he'll be sitting in a chair looking into the camera, and then he'll like look at the clock, whatever, and he'll be like, all right, it's like July 13th, 2021. So he was putting this together from like the day he got drafted. And I don't know what his goal was. Was it just personal to like document his journey in the NFL? Or was he always planning to come out with a documentary, even if he didn't go to the Eagles? If it was just to uh, release at some point, when he retires or whatever, to make more money. It's like Saquon, the documentary. I don't know. Again, another narcissistic type thing where it's like, hey, I got to document everything I'm doing because people are going to want to see this. So that's that. Just a couple of thoughts. I think that the documentary completely changed my view on Saquon Barkley, and I think he was trying to make people hate the Giants, and I think he comes off as more of the villain than the Giants. Because on the Giants side, it just looks like, hey, this is business, right? Running backs don't have very high value in the NFL, and business is business. Where with him, it seems like he was almost kind of being whiny and like a baby about it. So, and then yeah, I think the Giants should focus on getting a wide receiver that could be the true wide receiver two next year, next to Malik Neighbors. So I think that, and that'll help this year and next year. And we'll see. Like I said, they're going into the Broncos game. I think it's a winnable game. That doesn't mean they will win, but hopefully next week we'll have another happy video. And then, if we could sweep the Eagles, I don't think we will, but if we could, especially since all the NFC East lost this week. Now, that won't happen again next week because I think the Cowboys play the Commanders, so somebody's going to win that game or tie. So they can't all lose. But, man, that would be nice if we could sweep the Eagles. But you know what? Let's get ahead of ourselves. Let's play a competitive game against the Broncos first. All right. See ya.